Next Fix podcast. Today we've got Victor. He's got a different and interesting approach to health, and specifically with people that are in addiction too, because he's got experience with that. And so, Victor, welcome to the show, brother. How you doing?
Thanks, Ryan. I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Nice. Now Victor is overseas, right? You're across the pond from us. Is that the?
Yeah, I'm from California, but I live in Italy.
Right.
So, yes, I made the great escape.
The great escape. I love it. Yeah, man. Hey, man, we're turning things around over here. You'll be back soon.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Right. Okay, Victor. All right. So, again, we talked about this before we hit record, and I don't want to butcher the name, although it's Ayurveda is the name of the approach, correct?
Yeah,
right.
You got
Okay.
it.
Now, I know nothing about many things, but specifically about this, I know nothing, right? So I guess express to me and everybody else, right? Like, well, what is it? Why? What is it? And why is it important for people, or how could it be useful for people maybe in a recovery journey or suffering from addiction?
Okay. So Ayurveda is holistic health. And what that means is that it's a fundamental philosophy of healing that everything in your body works with everything else. So we have a system, a physical body that has functions, and they all work together to create our life. So, a lot of people are used to in Western medicine, conventional Western medicine, you go to a doctor, you have a problem here, my liver, ouch, my liver hurts, right? And so it's like, okay, let's focus on the liver, and hopefully I can give you something that makes your liver feel better, or whatever symptom you're thinking. So holistic approach to health takes a step back from all that, says, all right, well, why is the liver hurting? It might be coming from digestion, and then why is that hurting? Might be coming from this and that. And you could basically go through the whole life, not just the physical body, and look for all the causes coming together to cause the malady.
Yeah. Now, I broke my liver. It's still sore as hell. It's a bad joke, right? Because I used to say that when I was, oh man, I threw my liver, and it's like, that's not where it is. But anyways, it's a bad joke I used to use whenever I was bartending, so it's still a bad joke. But all right, so the holistic approach, man, we're starting to learn, I think, with all medicine approaches, in whichever way that we come from, but I think specifically the Western medicine approach has become treacherous, and it's a bit like in a box, right? Like you go see the doctor, they got a handful of what they call solutions, but they're really management tools, and they basically are limited to that, and then that's basically the only way that they know how to help you, right? But there's no real solution in sight, and basically these management tools are the prescription for the end of your days, and so there's really no getting better. And then this has been my experience, and I think other people's too, right? It's like you go to the doctor, and then they give you something to take, and that's it. You're taking that damn thing for the rest of your life. And there's never even a talk about really getting off of it. There's usually just more conversations about adjusting it to get usually more. And so I guess, how is it different, that Western medicine? If you want to dig into that a little bit deeper, like, why is it different than the Western medicine?
Yeah, well, we could just take an example that's common these days, which is diabetes, type 2 diabetes. So type 2 diabetes, blood sugar issue, often combined with weight issues, not always, but most of the time. And, basically, for the most part, the conventional Western approach is, here's metformin, maybe a few other drugs that forces the body to keep blood sugar levels down. But then over time, you typically have to just keep increasing the dose. And that's the story of most people. And, you just manage blood sugar and kind of hang in there as long as you can. But holistically or Ayurvedically, you look at, okay, well, why did that person even develop diabetes in the first place? And there might be 10 reasons coming together that then create what we call diabetes these days. So I always say, as an Ayurvedic doctor, I'm more of a detective. We comb through the whole life. So, it's diet, it's exercise, it's thoughts, it's trauma, you got to go through everything, and everybody's a bit different. So one person, it might be 80% diet, 10% trauma, 5%, whatever, and they all have a different formula, but all those things are coming together to create the same quote unquote disease. So from an Ayurvedic approach, not everyone should be taking the same thing, because the recipe of what's creating the problem is very different. And so we got to go with each individual and talk about what that particular person needs to change in order to undo the causes of the pathology. And just, people are like, okay, yeah, well, whatever, right? Maybe, maybe not. But just to give people an idea, 90% of my diabetes patients return to a normal weight and have normal blood sugar within a year. So, and then they're no longer considered diabetic by the Western conventional system.
Right. Now, this is interesting because I'm diabetic. But now check this out. Check this out because I'm a weirdo, right? And people are always like, oh, you type 2? And this is the best way that I can explain it. I carry traits from both type 1 and type 2. Why?
Yeah, you're like type 1.5.
People, oh, you're a hybrid. I've heard several things. And this is coming from actual doctors. This is not something I'm writing or getting out of a comic book. They're like, oh, you're like a both, And I'm like, okay, well, I'm like, you sure nobody can tell me what it is? So anyways, I've had doctors tell me I'm 1. I've had doctors tell me I'm 2. I've had doctors say I'm a hybrid. And so how did I develop it, right? And this is the Ayurvedic, I suppose, investigation. Well, because I took so many pills and I drank so much booze for so long, I basically beat the hell out of my pancreas, and it doesn't really work. And so my sugar will become low. I crash. I have to, obviously I watch it. And I am insulin dependent. And that conversation, the original conversation I had was in Colorado. I went into a diabetic coma and I was still bad, like not healthy in either sense, but I wasn't treating my diabetes in any way. Like I wasn't even trying to stay away from sugar. I drank an 85-ounce Mountain Dew after getting out of jail. I got out of jail and I was craving sugar. I drank this 85-ounce Mountain Dew, no ice. I just got the cup. And I was like craving sugar, drink the whole thing. My blood sugar was at 1100 when they flew me out in a helicopter. I was in Colorado. They flew me out to a town where they could triage me. Now, this is a different kind of a thing, just like holistic approaches. Like if I break my arm, I'm still going to the hospital, right? Like,
yep. Good. Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't know if I would go the Ayurvedic investigative route. If I was like arm broken, I'd probably want somebody to kind of numb the pain in any way possible until we kind of get to the healing. But anyways, long story longer here, I basically developed diabetes. And then so I've got this unique, this unique diabetic diagnosis, and I am insulin dependent. And when they told me that I would be on insulin for the rest of my life, it really bothered me. And so I've done well to reduce my A1C, obviously. And now, I'm somewhat tethered to the insulin. I haven't managed to really get to any particular day where I could reverse that entirely. But I mean, I suppose, like, where would you start with? I mean, I told you a little bit of backstory, but like, where would you investigate, right? If this, like me, like you're talking to me.
Yeah, so that's why it's important. That's why the holistic approach becomes important, because your pathology is called diabetes, and someone else's pathology is called diabetes, but you guys have completely different pathologies, right? So you got to be, from a holistic point of view, you have to be treated completely differently than someone who maybe developed it because they ate too many donuts, right?
Right.
Yeah, right. So actually, Ayurvedically speaking, what you have going on would just be called something completely different. It wouldn't even be called diabetes, but that's neither here nor there. So what you're talking about, which is very important, is how you got there, right? You got there by damaging the pancreas and the liver with the pills and the alcohol and whatever else, and everyone's going to get there a little bit differently. But the systems of the body that are affected are the same, so they manifest similar disease patterns. So when the first thing we got to do is get, if someone's, let's say, abusing alcohol, and I know probably your listeners know this already, but there's a big difference if someone comes into my clinic between someone abusing alcohol and not drinking appropriately and an alcoholic. There's a big difference between those two people. Someone who abuses alcohol, which is actually a lot of people, is not necessarily an alcoholic. And you can have an alcoholic who barely drinks. Right? So culturally, people don't understand that. And so they just say, oh yeah, alcohol is good or bad or whatever. But that's a complete, not really digging into the issues that we are having with addiction or abusing of a substance or anything like that. So if someone comes forward and says, okay, I know I'm addicted to something, let's keep it alcohol. I know I'm an alcoholic and I can't stop drinking. I'm going to talk to that person very differently than I am someone who comes in and says, I drink a lot, but I'm not an alcoholic. And then you might ask, well, maybe this person just hasn't admit they're an alcoholic. But anyways, right. There's a whole detective process that has to go on with helping someone realize where the sticking points are.
Right.
Yeah, so let's take you before the pancreas was damaged so much and the liver was damaged so much that you became insulin dependent. And I'm sure there were some people tried approaches talking to you, hey, you might be drinking, I don't know your story. You'd have to tell your story, but you're drinking too much, you're taking too much stuff, right? But typically, if you're talking to someone who has a genuine addiction, that's either going to do nothing or make it worse, at least at first, at least until they themselves recognize that they have a problem that they need to recover from. Mm-hmm. If they're not at that point yet, it's not going to go well.
Of course. Right. That is the truth. That's where I was then. Right. And so now, again, a lot of these people that the both of us are speaking in front of here is like, a lot of people, they do have some sobriety under their belt. And so then, in a scenario like that, like maybe they're out of that denial, right? The initial denial phase, right? Like, so how would you undergo that? Like maybe that conversation.
Yeah. So that's great. So they're in the perfect place because they've admitted it's like, okay, I have this issue. It's not something that is very rational. I can't just, will it away like a lot of people think that they can. And so, but they know they've done some damage to their body and they want to reverse that damage. It's perfect. That's the time to take a look at everything in life, the food, the exercise, any kind of herbal supplements. If there is kind of a lot of emotional baggage, which hint, there always is, and so on and so forth, go down the list and really get to work on making those things genuinely healthy as it pertains to their system. So that's why a lot of times you go on YouTube and you get this very broad, everyone should take turmeric. Everyone should take the popular one, ashwagandha, or it does this for everyone, but those are Ayurvedic herbs. And Ayurveda would say, no, you cannot think of these things like that. It depends on you and your life situation and your body at this time determines whether you should be taking turmeric or not.
Got it.
So to go through
now that's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you there, but that's interesting because like I've called turmeric and things like ashwagandha. I'm like, well, it's a no-brainer. Like you take it, it's going to help you out in some way or another. But you're saying that not always the case. Is that what you?
No, actually, we can take a simple example. Someone comes in, they have some skin rashes, hyperacidity, sensitive intestines, whatever, Now they might think that all those symptoms are separate, but they're all connected to the same pathology. And those kind of three things go together very readily. So turmeric being very heating would generally not be a good thing for that person to take.
Okay.
As an example.
Right. And so, yeah, I guess, and that's why you're a practitioner in something as what seems to be highly tailored and customized to everybody that you work with. This is an individual approach. And I guess you would never get off of the ground without doing a bit of an investigation, like right off the start, right? Like you'd have to know quite a bit. It's not like my liver hurts, right? Like you need to know.
Yeah.
You need to know more about it.
I need to know why your liver hurts.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, well, obviously without sharing names, right? But like, how have you made a difference for somebody that is in addiction or coming out of it or whatever? I guess, what has your experience been professionally?
So kind of two things. One is the person who's still in denial. That's the first person. Or, a lot of times I get approached by a family member or a loved one who says, I think my son, or I think my husband, or I think my wife, or whatever, has an addiction. And, take a second and they say, can they talk to you? And I'm like, sure. But if they haven't identified that they have an addiction yet, if they're not past that denial phase, then they're kind of the spouse or the loved one is like saying, well, will you tell them that they have an addiction? And my answer to them is no, because that's not how it works. But I will see them and I'm going to start a conversation. And through a lot of interaction and through honestly being sneaky, you hope that you can help bring that person. I don't think I can bring that person, help bring that person to a place where they're like, wait a second, maybe this is worse than I think it is. Or maybe that behavior is odd and not normal. Like normal in the sense like, I behave like everyone else around the substance.
Right. So I'm thinking in my head, I'm just kind of going over like a narrative, so it's like, they're like, well, because they got some other things wrong. They're like, oh, well, my vision's blurry, and man, my knees are killing me. And you'll kind of start there knowing, right? Because the family member is expressed. So you're like, well, what's going on with you? And then they start telling you all these things, of course, ignoring the substance, right? Intentionally. But then what you're saying is that, like, in time, and then kind of in a more tactful way, like you're navigating the waters to get to, like, all of this can be linked to this, excessive abuse or use of this substance and things like that, right? Like, because everybody's got things wrong with them, because you'll start with whatever they admit to, and then, in time, kind of unveil, like, hey, this is also lurking here in addition to your bad vision or your achy knees or your joint pain. Like, we're also tacking on this poison, right? And is ripping you to pieces. And obviously you would have to tactfully get to that point. But so, yes. Like, go ahead.
Well, like, quick example, right? So let's say someone's in denial about being an alcoholic, and we've gone through, I'm not just going to say, oh, you're an alcoholic, right? We've gone through, I'm starting to get suspicious, and other people in this person's life are like, I don't think this is normal alcohol consumption habits. But a lot of alcoholics aren't necessarily binge drinkers, especially at the beginning of alcoholism. So they think they have it under control. And, they'll say, oh, I drink 2 glasses of wine a night. How often? Every night. It's like, okay. But last year I didn't drink any wine. It's like, okay. And we're talking. It's like, okay, so you're suffering from headaches, let's say. So, okay, give up this food, that food, blah, blah, blah. And in that list, I'm going to say, okay, you need to stop drinking for a little bit. And you get a pause. It's like, okay. And they really do mean that. They're not making things up. And they really do try. And they can at that point. And now the next conversation in the clinic is, so it's like, yeah, I had no problem giving up the chili peppers, and I had no problem giving up the donuts, but I didn't stop drinking. It's like, oh, okay. And you keep going and you keep going and you keep going. And eventually it's like, I can do everything but give up the alcohol.
Okay.
And it's like, and you can now, that's a different conversation than just saying, I think you're an alcoholic, you need to go AA.
Of course. And you allow them to come to that on their own.
They have to
time. Right. And so, but then, and then of course you don't jump all over it like a crazy person. Like, well, wait, well, why couldn't you just stop that? Like, you just let them kind of process. Okay, well, I was able to quit that, and I was able to quit that, I was able to quit that, and then you would kind of just unveil, like, okay, well, how do you think that maybe we could get closer to the mark, and then see if maybe they give it another shot, and then, or maybe they might just say, like, that's interesting that I wasn't able to quit the wine. Well, that is, but I think that's so advantageous, man, because, as opposed to what had seemed to be super popular, like maybe, I don't know, last 5 years, maybe 10 years ago, was like the intervention, it's like the, in your face, it's like, oh gosh, we gotcha. It's a surprise. And everybody's telling you the business. And it's like that to me has always been unnecessarily aggressive. And I don't really know all the statistics, even though maybe I should know a little bit of them, but like, it just doesn't seem like that's the best approach, man. Cause I know if you were to approach me the way that you're talking about the Ayurveda, right? Like, kind of like letting me kind of just find the path on my own over time, so much better. Because if you come at me, I'm just going to get angry, and then I'm gonna just push as hard as I can to continue my behavior. So, man, that is a really, really interesting, and I think, like I said, that's an advantageous way to kind of come at it, and I think it would stick a lot longer. Am I right?
Yeah, because so in Ayurveda, and go with me here, because I'm going to use a word that people don't like. So I want to make sure I kind of contain that word so that it doesn't do damage it shouldn't be doing. So Ayurveda says that the addiction part of a person, not their whole mind, just we'll call it the ball of addiction that can live inside certain people. That area of the mind, and only that area of the mind, is actually not sane. It's insane. So once that area gets activated inside someone, they could be walking down the street, being completely sane, normal, intelligent, functioning, everything. Great. They're wonderful people. It's like charming and expressive and everything's great. They're the best person in the world. Except they have this thing in their mind that developed who knows when, but maybe even from birth. And when that thing gets poked, when that thing gets pushed, and it could be by a substance, it could be by a food, and it's usually a very particular thing. When that thing gets poked, that person is temporarily acting in a insane space. So if you're having a conversation with an insane space inside someone, and you say, hey, the smart thing to do would be to stop drinking alcohol, the insane space just says, yeah, I know, I like the color of the sky too. So it's like, what? Right? But that's why a direct approach doesn't work, because you're completely misassessing what you're dealing with.
And that has so much weight to it, because I call it like mental gymnastics, that like I would be walking along and my addict mind would say and convince myself that it's not just an idea that we go into that liquor store, but it's the best idea for the entire planet. In fact, when you get out of there, this whole place is going to be better off after. Like, and it's like, right, great idea. And then I'm drunk in the bathroom, right? Like, and it's like, boom, like it's so strong, but it's psychotic. It's nonsensical to say the least, but like, man, is it crafty. So being crafty to combat it is what I feel is a pretty good approach, man. Yeah, that is now Ayurvedically, when you said Ayurvedically, it's kind of stung my ears because I just don't know what that means.
Okay, so Ayurveda is about 7,000 to 10,000 years old. It's the oldest system of health currently being practiced in the modern world. It's the oldest holistic system of health currently being practiced in the world. So it is, so imagine 8,000 years ago, India. But don't imagine India today, because that's not what India looked like 8,000 years ago, right? Yeah. 8,000 years ago, India, people are living extremely closely with nature. And that was always it. There was no other system of health. There was no, Ayurveda was not considered alternative health. It just was. If you're an Ayurvedic doctor, you might as well not say the Ayurveda. You're just a doctor.
Okay.
Right? So those were the people who were responsible for the health of their community. And there's no other option. So it's like, this is do or die stuff, right? It's like, if someone in my community is suffering from an addiction, I better figure this out. Otherwise that person's going away. There's no like sending them to a rehab center. There's no like sending them to a hospital somewhere else in the distance. It's like, no, these are my people in my community. I need an answer to this today. So that's the like level of severity we're looking at, and seriousness.
Yeah.
That these people were taking this science or learning about how to help their people. And that's why it's, heavily plant-based and herb-based and nature-based, is because those were the resources.
Okay. All right. So that sheds a great deal of light on it, right? Because when you kind of go back that, and now what are we learning though, right? Well, here in the States, right, we're starting to learn that we're in this toxin epidemic, and there's all this stuff everywhere. There's plastics in our food and metal in our everything, and our water is like contaminated to high heaven. And so we're learning all of these things that aren't natural have now gotten into the way of how we live and develop and function. And it's wreaking havoc, right? And so taking this holistic, because when I think holistic, I definitely don't, I think natural, but I don't think ancient natural. An ancient natural is a hell of a lot less tainted when you go back to where there was no mercury wasn't in sight. Aluminum wasn't in sight. It wasn't even a thing. You know what I mean? Like, what did you have? Like bronze and I don't know, maybe silver, who knows? But I'm just saying, like, the level of our ability to manipulate synthetic things into our lives is astronomical. So I think that the value of trying to even think or approach anything from a 7,000-year-old approach is pretty cool, right? Because if you were to do that, if you were able to do that, that's a good question. How do you erase or even take that? How do you think from something that's so ancient and then approach things that are now in such a modern kind of intertwined mess?
That's a great question. So like you were saying, aluminum or mercury or whatever, all that stuff, plastics. Great if you need to build a computer. terrible for the functioning of our human body.
Right.
So our human body is not, our human body evolved over thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years alongside these natural processes. It's only in very recent history that we become so high tech. And evolution takes a lot longer than a few hundred years to happen. So our bodies are still completely attuned to how it's been for the past 50,000 years or whatever. And that is with the natural cycles and natural things and all that stuff. So we find ourselves in a very unique position in time where we do have to kind of look at our modern world and say, okay, cool, this has a lot of cool things in it, but this flesh is still, of the same flesh as 8,000 years ago. It's not that different. And so we need to provide it with the same things that we did 8,000 years ago for it to remain vital.
Yeah. Right. Okay, man. That is, I'm on board despite not applying all of that. I feel like, you know what I mean? Like I use soaps and I use things and there's all these conveniences, man. And so I feel a bit hypocritical. Now I'll tell you what I'm not doing: meth. So that's good. And so
that's good.
And I'm not doing heroin and stuff no more. So I got that going for me. But yeah, I think that there's for people like yourself who are like implementing ancient approaches and mindsets and medicinal, the practicing of something that was used so long ago. And why would it still be being even considered these days if it wasn't really good? It's like certain philosophies or the Bible, for instance. There's a reason why that book stuck around as long as it has. It's helped a lot of people. And if it didn't, then it wouldn't be referenced and it wouldn't be used. And so, and it's just like philosophies, like Stoicism. It's a reason why people keep going back to it and have been for that long, right? And so for something like Ayurvedic medicine, right, there's a reason why it has lasted and been passed down and communicated and reused and taught, right? And it's because it's good. And so that being said, man, like if somebody were wanting to know more about it or work with you, I mean, I know you're in Italy, so I think predominantly people are listening. They're here in the States, but what does that look like? What does it look like to work with you or to implement these things?
Yeah. So most of the people I work with are in the States. So I do online consultations and it's easy to get a hold of me. I'm sure you'll put my email and website in the show notes.
Yeah.
You can always, if you want to know like a little bit more about how I work in detail or how I'll work with you specifically, you can just shoot me an email. We'll set up a Zoom or a phone call, talk to you for like 20 minutes, no cost. I'm not like, trying to hit you up or anything like that. And, especially for people who just got sober and they want to kind of help their body recover from whatever they were doing, or people who are like, I might have an addiction here. They're in that realm. Seriously, please call me because there's a lot you can do and you don't need to suffer.
Right. Now, just, I am going to do what you said. I'm going to put everything in print and all of that stuff. But just go ahead and tell us what website, what is it?
Sure. www.iayurveda.com. So the II is short for International Institute.
International Institute. Got it.
Yeah.
And then Ayurveda, spell that for everybody because I was struggling even trying to say it.
Sure. It's A.
Right. Yeah. And I'm pumped, man, because, like I said, man, I think that if people could make at least the efforts to, reduce the amount of like synthetic influence and metallic influence and kind of get back to maybe all natural things. I think these types of approaches, man, they're valuable beyond belief, man. And so, guys, this has been a very short and sweet journey here with Victor, but we've got more than enough to know that this is an advantageous route to take, if you want to go holistically into taking care of yourself, for the long run. I think that this makes a lot of sense, man. But Victor, your time has been so awesome with me, brother, and I'm excited to learn more about Ayurveda and Ayurvedically approved approaches, man. And thanks for everything, man. I appreciate your time, brother.
Thank you. Thanks, Ryan.
All right, Victor, have a good one, buddy.
Take it easy.